Hello, hello, hello! Greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of greeting across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome back, my dear, marvelous, wonderful scholars, to the study. Hello there, hello there, hello there. Hello there, Private Maverick. Good evening to you. Hello there, Julian20. Good evening as well. Hello there, Firefly. Good evening. Julian20, greetings, salutations, etc. Well, I try to cover all my bases with greetings, you know? I mean, there are so many different ways of greeting people. And I try to cover a wide variety of different ones, although, of course, I am limited in some respects by what I can say, you know, about those sort of things. Anyway, how is everyone, my dear scholars? Are you doing well? Is everything going well for you all? Horse, is everything prepared? Okay, good. I'm just trying to make sure everything's okay. Horace and I have been setting things up for tonight's stream quite a bit. Julian20 waiting for the blizzard this week. Oh, blizzard. That sounds terrible, Julian20. A blizzard is no fun. I can't imagine what you'd be going through, Julian20. I'm sorry to hear that. Although, I know some people do like snow, so if you like snow, well, you know. Firefly, it snowed this afternoon. Oh, I see. Julian20, I am not looking forward to it. Aw. Well, I know some people enjoy snowy weather. I'm guessing you are not one of those. So I would say I am sorry. Unless you're secretly one of those. I mean, then well, good for you if you like snow. It's hard to tell, you know. Excuse me. But yes. Is so everyone could hear me all right after last time where Julian20 said they had some a hard time hearing me. I'm hoping there's not gonna be any sort of issues with our sound this time. I mean, it would be very embarrassing to have during a reading stream the fact that you can't hear me read at all. Firefly, yes, volume is good. Good. But yes, on our end in the study, everything's going well. Isn't it going well, Horace? Yeah, Horace says everything's going well. Yeah, things have been all right, quiet, mostly peaceful. Most of the book squids aren't active right now for some reason. It's actually putting me on edge because you think about it. If you think about it, something like a book squid, the moment they go silent, you know they are up to something and something is going to happen, and I do not want to be around here when that something happens. You believe me? Of course, the fact that I'm stuck here, stuck in the study, means that even if there was something going on, I couldn't leave. So, yes, Unit 20, just like little kids. Oh, yes, just like little kids, except with tentacles and a single eye and that beak hidden in the pages. Did you know that book squids have a hidden beak in their pages? You know what they sometimes do is they sometimes wait in the shelves and you'll think it's an actual book. You'll open it up and then they bite you. And for good measure, they'll grab you with the tentacles and yes, Unit 20 cutting their little tentacles, painting with their tentacles. That reminds me of a funny story actually that happened here in the study. Horace and I, we had gone to one of the other rooms to look over do a little routine look over on the books, and we got in there, and the entire place was covered in paint. It ended up that a few of the book squids somehow found their way into the Van Gogh study room, had found the oil paints, and had done a number on a fair number of rooms. It was a disaster, let me tell you that, my dear scholars. We had to go into each room and clean it up ourselves. And that took I can't even say time because we don't have time. That took a while. That took a while, and I was not happy. It made my nice clothes stained with paint. Had to go without for an entire for I can't say day because we don't have days here. We don't have nights either. We don't have proper timekeeping. But I had to go without my clothes for a while. Don't get any ideas, scholars. Don't. All right? Just don't. Firefly, do you sleep? I don't need to sleep. I sometimes do it as a convenience rather than anything else. It my species doesn't actually need any rest or anything like that. We just do it as convenience points so people don't get freaked out. Kintron, don't get any idea. Kintron, don't. Do not. Also, hello there, Kintron. Welcome. Private Maverick, lucky bastard. Anyway. Oh, where was I? Oh, yes, what we're doing tonight. Tonight, my dear, lovely, wonderful scholars, we are continuing our reading of Agatha Christie's The Murder at the Vicarage. And if I could actually get my arms to work on this thing, you would actually see a book in my hand. Um, but yes, we are reading. So far, Colonel Prothrow, jerk, killed. Nobody knows who did it. Two people possibly were suspect. Now they are not suspects. They've discovered this one guy, an archaeologist, actually isn't an archaeologist. He's a fake, and he was actually there to steal the silverware from the family of the deceased jerk. And so now we still don't have any idea what's going on, other than there was a gunshot sound in the woods, apparently. We are still lost for clues. That is where we are right now, my dear scholars. So then, shall we continue our reading and see if we can get any answers in this book? What say you, my dear scholars? Oh, and Miss Marple is in this book too. It's her first book. Private Maverick answers, we can only hope. I'm going to guess Private Maverick wants to hear it. Okay. So then, sit back, my dear scholars. Relax. Have a hot or cold beverage of your liking. Dim the lights if you wish. And we'll continue our reading of Agatha Christie's The Murder at the Vicarage. Excuse me. Clearing my throat. Excuse me. Can't even remember who. I can't remember who this character is. But anyway, we'll continue. Chapter 24. I returned to the vicarage to find Hawes waiting for me in my study. He was pacing up and down nervously, and when I entered the room he started as though he had been shot. "You must excuse me," he said, wiping his forehead. "My nerves are all to pieces lately." "My dear fellow," I said, "you positively must get away for a change. We shall have you breaking down altogether, and that will never do. I can't desert my post. No, that is a thing I'll never do. It's not a case of desertion. You are ill. I'm sure Haydock would agree with me." Haydock? Haydock? What kind of a doctor is he? An ignorant country practitioner? "I think you're unfair to him. He has always been considered a very able man in his profession." "Oh, perhaps. Yes, I dare say, but I don't like him. However, that's not what I came to say. I came to ask you if you would be kind enough to preach tonight instead of me. I, I really do not feel equal to it." "Why, certainly. I will take the service for you." No, I wish to take the service. I am perfectly fit. It is only the idea of getting up in the pulpit, of all those eyes staring at me." He shut his eyes and swallowed convulsively. It is clear to me that there is something very wrong indeed with the It is clear to me that there is something very wrong indeed the matter with Hawes. He seemed aware of my thoughts, for he opened his eyes and said quickly, "There is nothing really wrong with me. It is just these headaches. These awful racking headaches. I wonder if you could let me have a glass of water." "Certainly," I said. I went and fetched it myself from the tap. Ringing bells is a profitless form of exercise in our house. I brought the water to him and he thanked me. He took from his pocket a small cardboard box, and opening it, extracted a rice paper capsule, which he swallowed with the aid of the water. "Oh, headache powder," he explained. I suddenly wondered whether Hawes might have become addicted to drugs. It would explain a great many of his particularities. Wow, that's a jump. "You don't take too many, I hope," I said. And does headache powder back then have anything you could get addicted to? I know a lot of drugs have some sort of things that have. I mean, people can get addicted to drugs, obviously. But would headache powder have something in it that would be addictive? I, I, I just can't imagine it. "No, oh no. Dr. Haydock warned me against that. But it is really wonderful. They bring instant relief." Private Maverick, well, Coca-Cola used to have cocaine. That is true. Firefly, that would depend a lot on what's in it. Extradine has caffeine. Oh, I did not know that. I was not aware. Indeed, he already seemed calmer and more composed. He stood up. "Then you will preach tonight? It's very good of you, sir." "Not at all, and I insist on taking the service too. Get along home and rest. No, I won't have any argument. Not another word." He thanked me again. Then he said, his eyes sliding past me to the window, "You you have been up at Old Hall today, haven't you, sir?" "Yes." "Excuse me, but were you sent for?" I looked at him in surprise, and he flushed. "I'm sorry, sir. I've just thought some new development might have arisen, and that was why Mrs. Prothero had sent for you." I had not the faintest intention of satisfying Hawes' curiosity. "She wanted to discuss the funeral arrangements, and one or two other small matters with me," I said. "Oh, that was all. I see." I did not speak. He fidgeted from foot to foot, and finally said, "Mr. Redding came to see me last night. I I can't imagine why." "Didn't he tell you?" He he just said he thought he'd look me up. Said it was a bit lonely in the evenings. He's never done such a thing before." "Well, he's supposed to be pleasant company," I said, smiling. "What does he want to come and see me for? I don't like it." His voice rose shrilly. "He spoke of dropping in again. What does it all mean? What idea do you think has gotten into his head?" "Why should you suppose he has any ulterior motive?" I asked. "I don't like it," repeated Hawes abstemiously. Excuse me. Let me get a drink of water before I say this word. Obstinately. "I've never done anything against him in any way. I never suggested that he was guilty. Even when he accused himself, I said it seemed most incomprehensible. If I've had suspicions of anybody, it's been of Archer, never of him. Archer is a totally different proposition. A godless, irrational ruffian. A drunken blackguard." "Don't you think you're being a little harsh?" I said. "After all, we really know very little about the man. A poacher, in and out of prison, capable of anything. Do you really think he shot Colonel Prothero?" I asked curiously. Hawes has an in Hawes has an inveterate dislike of answering yes or no. I have noticed it several times lately. Don't you think yourself, sir, that it's the only possible solution? As far as we know, I said, there's no evidence of any kind against him. His threats, said Hawes eagerly. You forget about his threats. I am sick and tired of hearing about Archer's threats. As far as I can make out, there is no direct evidence that he ever made any. He was determined to be revenged on Colonel Prothero. He primed himself with drink and then shot him. That's pure supposition. But you will admit that it's perfectly probable. No, I don't. Possible then? Possible, yes. Hawes glanced at me sideways. Why don't you think it's probable? Because, I said, a man like Archer wouldn't think of shooting a man with a pistol. It's the wrong weapon. Hawes seemed taken aback by my argument. Evidently, it wasn't the objection he had expected. Do you really think the objection is feasible? He asked doubtedly. To my mind, it is a complete stumbling block to Archer's having committed the crime, I said. In face of my positive assertion, Hawes said no more. He thanked me again and left. I had gone as far as the front door with him, and on the hall table I saw 4 notes. They had certain characteristics in common. The handwriting was almost unmistakably feminine. They all bore the words, "By hand urgent," and the only difference I could see was that one was noticeably dirtier than the rest. Their similarity gave me a curious feeling of seeing, not double, but quadruple. Mary came out of the kitchen and caught me staring at them. Come by hand since lunchtime, she volunteered. All but one. I found that in the box. Terrible at that accent. I don't know why I messed up that accent. I nodded, gathered them up, and took them into the study. The first one ran thus. Drink of water. Dear Mr. Clement, something has come to my knowledge which I feel you ought to know. Excuse me. It concerns the death of poor Colonel Prothero. I should much appreciate your advice on the matter, whether to go to the police or not. Since my dear husband's death, I have such a shrinking from every kind of publicity. Perhaps you could run in and see me for a few minutes this afternoon. Yours sincerely, Martha Price Ridley. I opened the second. Dear Mr. Clement, I am so troubled, so excited in my mind to know what I ought to do. Something has come to my ears that I feel must be important. I have such a horror of being mixed up with the police in any way. I am so disturbed and distressed. Would it be asking too much of you, too much of you, dear Vicar, to drop in for a few minutes and solve my doubts and perplexities for me in the wonderful way you always do? Forgive my troubling you. Yours very sincerely, Caroline Weatherby. The third I felt I could almost have recited beforehand. Dear Mr. Clement, something most important has come to my ears. I feel you should be the first to know about it. Will you call in and see me this afternoon some time? I will wait in for you. This militant epistle was signed Amanda Hartnell. I opened the fourth missive. It has been my good fortune to be troubled with very few anonymous letters. An anonymous letter is, I think, the meanest and cruelest weapon there is. This one was no exception. It purported to be written by an illiterate person, but several things incline me to disbelieve that assumption. Dear Vicar, I think you ought to know what is going on. Your lady has been seen coming out of Mr. Redding's cottage in a surreptitious manner. You know what I mean. The two are carrying on together. I think you ought to know. A friend. Excuse me. I made a faint exclamation of disgust, and crumpling up the paper, tossed it into the open grate just as Griselda entered the room. What's that you're throwing down so contemptuously? She asked. Filth, I said. Taking a match from my pocket, I struck it and bent down. Griselda, however, was too quick for me. She had stooped down and caught up the crumpled ball of paper and smoothed it out before I could stop her. She read it, gave a little exclamation of disgust, and tossed it back to me, turning away as she did so. I lighted it and watched it burn. Griselda had moved away. She was standing by the window looking out into the garden. Len, she said without turning round. Yes, my dear? I'd like to tell you something. Yes, don't stop me. I want to, please. When when Lawrence Redding came here, I let you think that I had only known him slightly before. That was true. I had known him rather well. In fact, before I met you, I had been rather in love with him. I think most people are with Lawrence. I was, well, absolutely silly about him at one time. I don't mean I wrote him compromising letters or anything idiotic like they do in books. But I was rather keen on him, once. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Oh, because I don't know exactly, except that, well, you're foolish in some ways. Just because you're so much older than I am, you think that that I'm likely to like other people. I thought you'd be tiresome, perhaps, about me and Lawrence being friends. You're very clever at concealing things, I said, remembering what she had told me in that room less than a week ago, and the ingenious way she had talked. Yes, I've always been able to hide things. In a way, I like doing it. Her voice held a childlike ring of pleasure to it. But it's quite true what I said. I didn't know about Anne, and I wondered why Lawrence was so different. Not, well, really not noticing me. I'm not used to it. There was a pause. You do understand, Len? Said Griselda anxiously. Yes, I said. I understand. But did I? I don't know, does he? Huh. So again, now we have three letters which purport from three different women in the village to know something or something important has happened. And we have a letter from an anonymous person who's claiming that Griselda has been unfaithful to her husband with Redding. Wonder where this is going. Then again, it has been, of course, my dear scholars, mentioned that in the village news travels fast, so any one of those women could have gotten the same bit of news and just passed it on to the next, thinking that they originated the news. So the mystery thickens. Also, why is Hawes so dead set on Redding being the guilty party? Hmm. Okay. Excuse me. The longer chapter now. We'll find out. Chapter 25. I found it hard to shake off the impression left by the anonymous letter. Pitch soils. Odd thing to say. However, I gathered up the other three letters, glanced at my watch, and started out. I wondered very much what this might be that had come to the knowledge of three ladies simultaneously. I took it to be the same piece of news. Like I said, in this I was to realize that my psychology was at fault. Oh, are we going to get some new clues, my dear scholars? I cannot pretend that my calls took me past the police station. My feet gravitated there of their own accord. I was anxious to know whether Inspector Slack had returned from Old Hall. I found that he had, and further, that Miss Cram had returned with him. The fair Gladys was seated in the police station carrying off matters with a high hand. She denied absolutely having taken the suitcase to the woods. Just because one of these gossiping old cats had nothing better to do than look out of her window all night, you go and pitch upon me. She's been mistaken once, remember, when she said she saw me at the end of the lane on the afternoon of the murder? And if she was mistaken then in daylight, how could she possibly have recognized me by moonlight? Wicked it is, the way of these old ladies go on down here. Say anything they will, and me asleep in my bed as innocent as can be. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, the lot of you. And suppose the landlady of the Blue Boar identifies the suitcase as yours, Miss Cram. If she says anything of the kind, she's wrong. There's no name on it. Nearly everybody's got a suitcase like that. As for poor Dr. Stone accusing him of being a common burglar, and he has a lot of letters after his name. You refuse to give us any explanation, then, Miss Cram? No refusing about it. You've made a mistake, that's all. You and your meddlesome marples. I won't say a word more. Not without my solicitor present. I'm going this minute unless you're going to arrest me. For answer, the inspector rose and opened the door for her, and with a toss of the head, Miss Cram walked out. That's the line she takes, said Slack, coming back to his chair. Absolute denial. And of course the old lady may have been mistaken. No jury would believe you could recognize anyone from that distance on a moonlit night. And of course, as I say, the old lady may have made a mistake. She may, I said, but I don't think she did. Miss Marple is usually right. That's what makes her unpopular. It's kind of weird to hear him say Miss Marple is an unpopular person, since the character, of course, is so beloved. But I suppose in the nature of the book, she would be a pretty unpopular person. The inspector grinned. That's what Hearst says. Lord, these villages. What about the silver, Inspector? Seems to be perfectly in order. Of course, that meant one a lot or the other must be a fake. There's a very good man in Much Bedham, an authority on old silver. I've phoned over to him and sent a car to fetch him. We'll soon know which is which. Either the burglary was an accomplished fact, or else it was only planned. Doesn't make a frightful lot of difference either way. I mean, as far as we're concerned. Robbery's a small business compared with murder. These two aren't concerned with the murder. We'll maybe get a line on him through the girl. That's why I let her go without any more fuss. I wondered. I said. A pity about Mr. Redding. It's not often you find a man who goes out of his way to oblige you. I suppose not, I said, smiling slightly. Women cause a lot of trouble, moralized the inspector. Jeez. Kintron, Miss Marple's town narc. That's pretty true, Kintron. That's pretty true. Okay. Excuse me. He sighed and then went on, somewhat to my surprise. Of course, there's Archer. Oh, I said, you've thought of him. Well, naturally, sir. First thing, it didn't need any anonymous letter. It didn't need any anonymous letters to put me on his track. Anonymous letters? I said sharply. Did you get one then? That's nothing new, sir. We get a dozen a day at least. Oh, yes, we were put wise to Archer, as though the police couldn't look out for themselves. Archer's been under suspicion from the first. The trouble of it is, he's got an alibi. Not that it amounts to anything, but it's awkward to get over. What do you mean by it's not amounting to anything? I asked. Well, it appears he was with a couple of pals all the afternoon. Not, as I say, that counts much. Men like Archer and his pals would swear to anything. There's no believing a word they say. We know that. But the public doesn't, and the jury's taken from the public, more's the pity. They know nothing, and 10 to 1 believe everything that's said in the witness box, no matter who it is that says it. And of course Archer himself will swear till he's black in the face that he didn't do it. Not so obliging as Mr. Redding, I said with a smile. Not he, said the inspector, making this remark as a plain statement of fact. It is natural, I suppose, to cling to life, I mused. You'd be surprised if you knew the murderers that have got off through the soft-heartedness of the jury, said the inspector gloomily. But do you really think that Archer did it? I asked. It has struck me as curious all along that Inspector Slack never seems to have any personal views of his own on the murder. The easiness or difficulty of getting a conviction are the only points that seem to appeal to him. I'd like to be a bit surer, he admitted. A fingerprint now, or a footprint, or seen in the vicinity about the time of the crime. Can't risk arresting him without something of that kind. He's been seen round Mr. Redding's house once or twice, but he'd say that was to speak to his mother. A decent body she is. No, on the whole, I'm for the lady. If I could only get definite proof of blackmail. But you can't get definite proof of anything in this crime. It's theory, theory, theory. It's a sad pity that there's not a single spinster lady living along your road, Mr. Clement. I bet she'd have seen something if there had been. His words reminded me of my calls, and I took leave of him. It was about the solitary instance when I had seen him in a genial mood. Excuse me. My first call was on Miss Hartnell. She must have been watching me from the window, for before I had time to ring, she had opened the front door and, clasping my hand firmly in hers, had led me over the threshold. So good of you to come. In here. More private. We entered a microscopic room about the size of a hen coop. Miss Hartnell shut the door and with an air of deep secrecy waved me to a seat. There was only 3. I perceived that she was enjoying herself. I'm never one to beat about the bush, she said in her jolly voice, the latter slightly toned down to meet the requirements of the situation. You know how things go round the rounds in a village like this. Unfortunately, I said, I do. I agree with you. Nobody dislikes gossip more than I do. But there it is. I thought it my duty to tell the police inspector that I'd called on Mrs. Lestrange the afternoon of the murder, and that she was out. I don't expect to be thanked for doing my duty. I just do it. Ingratitude is what you meet with the first and last in this life. Why, only yesterday that impudent Mrs. Baker. Yes, yes, I said, hoping to avert the usual tirade. Very sad, but you were saying. The lower classes don't know who are their best friends, said Miss Hartnell. I always say a word in season when I'm visiting. Not that I'm ever thanked for it. You were telling the inspector about your call upon Miss Lestrange, I prompted. Exactly. And by the way, he didn't thank me. Said he'd ask for information when he wanted it. Not those words exactly, but that was the spirit. There's a different class of men in the police force nowadays. Very probably, I said. Sorry, I can't help laughing. My own voice for Cardinals make me laugh a little bit. But you were going on to say something. I decided that this time I wouldn't go near any wretched inspector. After all, a clergyman is a gentleman. At least some are, she added. I gathered that the qualification was intended to include me. If I can help you in any way, I began. It's a matter of duty, said Miss Hartnell, and closed her mouth with a snap. I don't want to have to say these things. No one likes it less. But duty is duty. I waited. I've been given to understand, went on Miss Hartnell, turning rather red, that Mrs. Lestrange gives out that she was at home all the time. That she didn't answer the door because, well, she didn't choose. Such airs and graces. Only called as a matter of duty, and to be treated like that. She has been ill, I said mildly. Ill? Fiddlesticks! You're too unworldly, Mr. Clement. There's nothing the matter with that woman. Too ill to attend the inquest, indeed. Medical certificate from Miss Dr. Haydock. She can wind him round her little finger, everyone knows that. Well, what was I? I didn't quite know. It is difficult with Miss Hartnell to know where narrative ends and vituperation begins. Oh, about calling on her that afternoon. Well, it's fiddlesticks to say she was in the house. She wasn't. I know. How can you possibly know? Miss Hartnell's face turned redder. In somewhat less truculent, her demeanor might have been called embarrassed. I'd knocked and run, she explained, twice, if not 3 times, and it occurred to me suddenly that the bell might be out of order. She was, I was glad to note, unable to look me in the face when saying this. The same builder builds all our houses, and the bells he installs are clearly audible when standing on the mat outside the front door. Both Miss Hartnell and I knew this perfectly well, but I suppose decencies have to be preserved. Yes, I murmured. I didn't want to push my car through the letterbox. That would seem so rude. And whatever I am never rude. Well, I don't know about that. Sorry, this next line. She made this amazing statement without a tremor. Oh. Oh, so I thought I would just go round the house and tap on the window pane, she continued unblushingly. I went all round the house and looked in at all the windows, but there was no one in the house at all. I understood her perfectly. Taking advantage of the fact that the house was empty, Miss Hartnell had given unbridled rein to her curiosity, and had gone round the house, examining the garden and peering in at all the windows to see as much as she could of the interior. She had chosen to tell her story to me, believing that I should be a more sympathetic and lenient audience than the police. The clergy are supposed to give the benefit of the doubt to their parishioners. I made no comment on the situation. I merely asked a question. What time was that, Miss Hartnell? As far as I can remember, said Miss Hartnell, it must have been close on 6 o'clock. I went straight home afterwards and got in about 6:10, and Mrs. Prothero came in somewhere round about the half-hour, leaving Dr. Stone and Mr. Redding outside, and we talked about bulbs, and all the time the poor Colonel lying murdered. It's a sad world. It is sometimes a rather unpleasant one, I said. I rose. And that is all you have to tell me? I just thought it might be important. It might, I agreed. And refusing to be drawn further, much to Miss Hartnell's disappointment, I took my leave. I gotta do more water just in case of the voices. It's a good thing everyone knows I'm a reading streamer because just saying, because in case of the voices might be taken the wrong way, unfortunately. Miss Weatherby, whom I visited next, received me in a kind of flutter. Dear Vicar, how truly kind! You've had tea? Really you won't. A cushion for your back. It is so kind of you to come round so promptly. Always willing to put yourself out for others. There was a good deal of this before we came to the point, and even then I was approached with a good deal of circumlocution. You must understand that I heard this on the best authority. In St. Mary Mead, the best authority is always somebody else's servant. You can't tell me who told you. I promised, dear Mr. Clement, and I always think a promise should be a sacred thing. She looked very solemn. Shall we say, little bird told me? That is safe, isn't it? I longed to say, it's damn silly. I rather wish I had. Excuse me. I should have liked to observe the effect on Miss Weatherby. Well, this little bird told me that she saw a certain lady who shall be nameless. Another kind of bird? I inquired. To my great surprise, Miss Weatherby went off into paroxysms of laughter and tapped me playfully on the arm, saying, Oh, Vicar, you must not be so naughty. When she had recovered, she went on. A certain lady, and where do you think this certain lady was going? She turned into the vicarage. She turned into the vicarage road. But before she did so, she looked up and down the road in a most peculiar way to see if anybody she knew were noticing her, I imagine. And the little bird? I inquired. Paid a visit to the fishmonger's in the room over the shop. I know where maids go on their days out. I know there is one place they never go if they can help. Anywhere in the open air. And that time, continued Mrs. Weatherby, leaning forward mysteriously, was just before 6 o'clock. On which day? Miss Weatherby gave a little scream. Oh, the day of the murder, of course. Did I say so? I inferred it, I replied. And the name of the lady? Oh, begins with an L, said Weatherby, nodding her head several times. Feeling that I had got to the end of the information Miss Weatherby had to impart, I rose to my feet. You won't let the police cross-question me, will you? Said Miss Weatherby pathetically as she clasped my hand in both of hers. I do shrink from publicity, and to stand up in court. In special cases, I said, they let witnesses sit. I got no, no! You did not hear that word, my dear scholars. You did hear it slip out. That was not on purpose, believe me. Ugh. Where was I? In special cases, I said, they let witnesses sit down. And I escaped. There was still Mrs. Price Ridley to see. That lady put me in my place at once. I will not be mixed up in any police court business, she said grimly after shaking my hand coldly. You understand that, on the other hand, having come across a circumstance which needs explaining, I think it should be brought to the notice of the authorities. Does it concern Mrs. Lestrange? I asked. Why should it? Demanded Miss Price Ridley coldly. She had me at a disadvantage there. It's a very simple matter, she continued. My maid Clara was standing at the front gate. She went down there for a minute or two. She says to get a breath of fresh air. Most unlikely, I should say. Much more probable that she was looking out for the fishmonger's boy, if he calls himself a boy. Impudent young jackanapes thinks because he's 17 he can joke with all the girls. Anyway, as I say, she was standing at the gate, and she heard a sneeze. Yes, I said, waiting for more. That's all. I tell you, she heard a sneeze. And don't start telling me I'm not so young as I once was, and may have made a mistake, because it was Clara who heard it. She's only 19. But, I said, why shouldn't she have heard a sneeze? Miss Price Ridley looked at me in obvious pity for my poorness of intellect. She heard a sneeze on the day of the murder, at a time when there was no one in your house. Doubtless the murderer was concealed in the bushes waiting his opportunity. What you have to look for is a man with a cold in his head. Or a sufferer from hay fever, I suggested, but as a matter of fact, Miss Price Ridley, I think that mystery has a very easy solution. Our maid, Mary, has been suffering from a severe cold in the head. In fact, her sniffling has made tried us very much lately. It must have been her sneeze your maid heard. It was a man's sneeze, said Mrs. Price Ridley firmly, and you couldn't hear your maid sneeze in your kitchen from our gate. You couldn't hear anyone sneezing in the study from your gate, I said, or at least I very much doubt it. I said the man might have been concealed in the shrubbery, said Miss Price Ridley. Doubtless when Clara had gone in, he effected an entrance by the front door. Well, of course, that's possible, I said. I tried not to make my voice consciously soothing, but I must have failed, for Mrs. Price Ridley glared at me suddenly. I am accustomed not to be listened to, but I might mention also that to leave a tennis racket carelessly flung down on the grass without a press completely ruins it. And tennis rackets are very expensive nowadays. There did not seem to be rhyme or reason in this flank attack. It bewildered me utterly. But perhaps you don't agree, said Miss Price Ridley. Oh, I do, certainly. I am glad. Well, that is all I have to say. I wash my hands of the whole affair. Excuse me. She leaned back and closed her eyes like one weary of this world. I thanked her and said goodbye. Kinchon, what are you laughing about now? Whenever Kinchon laughs, I get a little bit worried because it's usually at my expense. Usually, every laugh in this stream is at my expense. On the doorstep, I ventured to ask Clara about her mistress's statement. Goodness gracious, how much? Oh, no. Her mistress's statement. Kinchon, I put something on Crusader's server. Oh, I see. I'll have to check later. Probably. I'm drained it now. On the doorstep, I ventured to ask Clara about her mistress's statement. It's quite true, sir. I heard a sneeze, and it wasn't an ordinary sneeze, not by any means. Nothing about a crime is ever ordinary. The shot was not an ordinary kind of shot. The sneeze was not a usual kind of sneeze. It was, I presume, a special murderer's sneeze. I asked the girl what time this had been, but she was very vague, sometime between 1/4 and 6:30, she thought. Anyway, it was before the mistress had the telephone call, and was took bad. I asked her if she had heard a shot of any kind, and she said the shots had been something awful. After that, I placed very little credence in her statements. I was just turning in at my own gate when I decided to pay a friend a visit. Glancing at my watch, I saw that I had just time for it before taking Evensong. I went down the road to Haydock's house. He came out on the doorstep to meet me. I noticed afresh how worried and haggard he looked. This business seemed to have aged him out of all knowledge. I'm glad to see you, he said. What's the news? I told him the latest stone development. High-class thief, he commented. Well, that explains a lot of things. He'd read up his subject, but he made slips from time to time to me. Prothero must have caught him out once. You remember the row they had. What do you think about the girl? Is she in it too? Opinion as to that is undecided, I said. For my own part, I think the girl is all right. She's such a she's such a prize idiot. I added. No, oh, that's him. She's such a prize idiot. I added. Oh, I wouldn't say that. She's rather shrewd, is Miss Gladys Cram. A remarkably healthy specimen, not likely to trouble members of my profession. I told him that I was worried about Hawes, and that I was anxious that he should get away for a real rest and change. Something evasive came into his manner when I said this. His answer did not ring quite true. Yes, he said slowly. I suppose that would be the best thing. Poor chap, poor chap. I thought you didn't like him. I don't. Not much. But I'm sorry for a lot of people I don't like. He added after a minute or two. I'm even sorry for Prothero. Poor fellow. Nobody ever liked him much. Too full of his own rectitude and too self-assertive. It's an unlovable mixture. He was always the same, even as a young man. I didn't know you knew him then. Oh, yes, when we lived in Westmoreland, I had a practice not far away. That's a long time ago now, nearly 20 years. I sighed. 20 years ago, Griselda was 5 years old. Time is an odd thing. Is that all you came to say to me, Clement? I looked up with a start. Haydock was watching me with keen eyes. There's something else, isn't there? He said. I nodded. I had been uncertain whether to speak or not when I came in, but now I decided to do so. I like Haydock as well as any man I know. He is a splendid fellow in every way. I felt that what I had to tell him might be useful to him. Okay, I have to see what Kintron posted. My curiosity is getting the better of me. Give me a second, my dear scholars. Let's see. Uh, oh no. Oh no, it got caught. Oh no! Oh, Kintron! Why? It had to be you, didn't it? It had to be you who caught it. Oh no! Of course, it had to be you, Kintron. Oh, it's gonna be living forever, isn't it? Kintron might be my next sound alert. No! No! Oh no! Oh gosh! Oh, gonna have. I'm gonna keep reading, but oh no! Of course you did. Oh, let's see if we can continue. I had been uncertain whether to speak or not when I came in, but now I decided to do so. I liked Haydock as well as any man I know. He is a splendid fellow in every way. I felt that what I had to tell might be useful to him. Excuse me. I recited my interviews with Miss Hartnell and Miss Weatherby. He was silent for a long time after I'd spoken. It's quite true, Clement, he said at last. I've been trying to shield Mrs. Lestrange from any inconvenience that I could. As a matter of fact, she's an old friend. But that's not my only reason. That medical certificate of mine isn't the put-up job you all think it was. He paused and then said gravely, This is between you and me, Clement. Mrs. Lestrange is doomed. Oh, hello there, One Truel. Welcome. Oh, you affiliated. Congratulations. Oh, that's wonderful, One Truel. Yahoo indeed. We are reading The Murder at the Vicarage. Congratulations. Oh, let's give One Truel an applause. Oh, thank you for the resubscribe, Joey Jelly. Welcome. Oh, 40 months. Wow. Yo, indeed. Oh my goodness, everyone's coming in right now. Oh my goodness, everyone. Oh, good for you, One True L. Good for you. Oh, that is wonderful. I'm so proud of you, One True L. I'm so happy for you. Where was I? Oh, yes, yes, yes. And welcome, Chewy Jelly. We are reading Murder at the Vicarage, and we're gonna probably do one more chapter for tonight. But yeah, Trill, I saw this and I knew I had to have it. I really don't know what that. I can't remember what that's from. I know it's from a movie, but I cannot recall it. This is between you and me. Oh, hello there, Darth. Welcome. Oh my goodness gracious, everyone's coming in now. Welcome, Darth. Montreal 70s B movie. This is between you and me, Clement. Mrs. Lestrange is doomed. What? She's a dying woman. I gave her a month at longest. Do you wonder that I want to keep her from being badgered and questioned? He went on. When she turned into this road that evening, it was here she came. To this house. You haven't said so before. I didn't want to create talk. 6 to 7 isn't my time for seeing patients, and everyone knows that. But you can take my word for it that she was here. She wasn't here when I came for you, though. I mean, when we discovered the body. No. He seemed perturbed. She left to keep an appointment. In what direction was the appointment? In her own house? I don't know, Clement. On my honor, I don't know. I believe him, but... And supposing an innocent man is hanged, I said. No, he said. No one will be hanged for the murder of Colonel Prothero. You can take my word for that. But that is just what I could not do, and yet the certainty in his voice was very great. No one will be hanged, he repeated. This man Archer. He made an impatient movement. Hasn't got the brains enough to wipe his fingerprints off the pistol. Perhaps not. Oh, thank you for the hydrates, Sophia. Welcome. Oh my goodness, where is everyone coming from? Oh goodness. Darth, everyone's coming in now on Matsu. All the jokes I couldn't check. Do not use that line, Darth. That word, please, Darth. Please don't. I had enough trouble earlier on. Perhaps not, I said dubiously. Well, Sophia, we are reading Murder at the Vicarage, Miss Marple's first novel. It says the first Miss Marple mystery, but if I recall, that's not absolutely correct. I believe that she appeared in some short stories beforehand. Sophia, y'all will never hear me read that work. I say exclaimed. Perhaps not, I said dubiously. Then I remembered something, and taking the little brownish crystal I had found in the wood from my pocket, I held it out to him and asked him what it was. Hmm? He hesitated. Looks like picric acid. Where did you find it? That, I replied, is Sherlock Holmes's secret. He smiled. What is picric? Yeah, what is picric acid? Well, it's an explosive. Yes, I know that, but it's got another use, hasn't it? He nodded. It's used medically. In solutions for burns. Wonderful stuff. I held out my hand, and rather reluctantly he handed it back to me. It's of no consequence. It's of no consequence, probably, I said, but I found it in a rather unusual place. You won't tell me where? Rather childishly, I wouldn't. He had his secrets. Well, I would have mine. I was a little hurt that he had not confided in me more fully. Kintraw, no ejaculating for Sophia! Am I gonna just have to make a list of words that are banned in the study, along with the jokes, the memes? I am just gonna be an absolute killjoy by the end of this, aren't I? Matsu doesn't allow anything to his server. Okay, this next one is probably gonna be the last chapter, I think, for the night. Oh, I can only do so many with so many voices. Chapter 26. I was in a strange mood when I mounted the pulpit that night. The church was unusually full. I cannot believe that it was the prospect of Hawes preaching which had attracted so many. Hawes's sermons are dull and dogmatic, and if the news had got round that I was preaching instead, that would not have attracted them either. For my sermons are dull and scholarly. Oh, poor guy. Dull and scholarly. Neither, I am afraid, can I attribute it to devotion. Darth, I almost fell out of bed laughing. Oh, I'm not going to live that down, am I? Everybody had come, I conclude, to see who else was there, and possibly exchange a little gossip in the church porch afterward. Haydock was in church, which is unusual, and also Lawrence Redding. And to my surprise, besides Lawrence, I saw the white, strained face of Hawes. Anne Prothero was there, but she usually attends the evensong on Sundays, though I had hardly thought she would today. I was far more surprised to see Lettuce. Church-going was compulsory on Sunday morning. Colonel Prothero was adamant on that point, but I had never seen Lettuce at evening service before. Darth, Matsu is lucky I didn't witness that moment live. I'd have gone too down on that with jokes. Oh, of course you would. Gladys Cram was there, looking rather blatantly young and healthy against a background of wizened spinsters, and I fancied that a dim figure at the end of the church who had slipped in late was Mrs. Lestrange. I need hardly say that Mrs. Price Ridley, Miss Hartnell, Miss Weatherby, and Miss Marple were there in full force. All the village people were there, with hardly a single exception. I didn't know what we have had. I don't know when we have had such a crowded congregation. Kintron not picturing Art with Darth and I in a balcony heckling him like Statler and Waldorf. You know, that would actually be a pretty good piece of art, wouldn't it? That would actually be funny. Crowds are queer things. There was a magnetic atmosphere that night, and the first person to feel its influence was myself. As a rule, I prepare my sermons beforehand. I am careful and conscientious over them, but no one is better aware than myself of their deficiencies. Darth, what a great comparison, oh funny wolf. Tonight I was of necessity preaching extempore, and as I looked down on the sea of upturned faces, a sudden madness entered my brain. I ceased to be in any sense a minister of God. I became an actor. I had an audience before me, and I wanted to move that audience, and more, I felt the power to move it. I am not proud of what I did that night. I'm an utter disbeliever in the emotional revivalist spirit. And yet, that night, I acted the part of a raving, ranting evangelist. Now, I gave out my text slowly. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. I repeated it twice, and I heard my own voice, a resonant, ringing voice, unlike the voice of that everyday Leonard Clement. Darth, my Amazon has a sense of humor. I ordered a couple of things, and my final total was 69.67. Oh my goodness gracious. Feels like the universe is against me sometimes. Well, the multiverse, the omniverse, Lawverse. I saw Griselda from her front pew looking up in surprise, and Dennis follow her example. I held my breath for a moment or two, and then I let myself rip. The congregation in that church were in a state of pent-up emotion, ripe to be played upon. I played upon them. I exhorted sinners to repentance. I lashed myself into a kind of emotional frenzy. Again and again I threw out a denouncing hand and reiterated the phrase, I am speaking to you. Kintron, I paused for a moment and let myself rip. That's what it says in the book. Um, yeah. Yep. That's pretty much what it says in the book. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Says that phrase in the book, Kintron. Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely says it. Yes. Kintron, amazing how language changes over the years. Yeah, yes, 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 it does. It's amazing what words change their meaning. And each time from different parts of the church, a kind of sighing gasp went up. Mass emotion is a strange and terrible thing. I finished up with those beautiful and poignant words, perhaps the most poignant words in the whole Bible. This night thy soul shall be required of thee. It was a strange, brief possession. When I got back to the vicarage, I was my usual faded, indeterminate self. I found Griselda rather pale. She slipped her arm through mine. Len, she said, you were rather terrible tonight. I I didn't like it. I've never heard you preach like that before. I don't suppose you ever will again, I said, sinking down wearily on the sofa. I was tired. What made you do it? A sudden madness came over me. Oh, it it wasn't something special? What do you mean, something special? I wondered, that was all. You're very unexpected, Len. I never feel I really know you. We sat down to cold supper, Mary being out. There's a note for you in the hall, said Griselda. Get it, will you, Dennis? Dennis, who had been very silent, obeyed. I took it and groaned. Across the top left-hand corner was written, by hand, urgent. This, I said, must be from Miss Marple. There's no one else left. I had been perfectly correct in my assumption. I'm gonna do Miss Marple's voice for this because I don't get to do it enough. Dear Mr. Clement, I should so much like to have a little chat with you about one or two things that have occurred to me. I feel we should all try and help in elucidating this sad mystery. I will come over about 9:30, if I may, and tap on your study window. Perhaps dear Griselda would be very kind as to run over here and cheer up my nephew. And Mr. Dennis, too, of course, if he cares to come. If I do not hear, I'll expect them, and will come over myself at the time I have stated. Yours very sincerely, Jane Marple. I handed the note to Griselda. Oh, we'll go, she said cheerfully. A glass or two of homemade liqueur is just what one needs on Sunday evening. I think it's Mary's blancmange that is so frightfully depressing. It's like something out of a mortuary. Dennis seemed less charmed at the prospect. It's all very well for you, he grumbled. You can talk all this highbrow stuff about art and books. I always feel a perfect fool sitting and listening to you. That's good for you, said Griselda serenely. It puts you in your place. Anyway, I don't think Mr. Raymond West is so frightfully clever as he pretends to be. Very few of us are, I said. I wondered very much what exactly it was that Miss Marple wished to talk over. Of all the ladies in my congregation, I considered her by far the shrewdest. Not only does she see and hear practically everything that goes on, but she draws amazingly neat and posted deductions from the facts that come under her notice. If I were at any time to set out if I were at any time to set out on a career of deceit, it would be Miss Marple that I should be afraid. What Griselda called the nephew amusing party started off at a little after 9, and whilst I was waiting for Miss Marple to arrive, I amused myself by drawing up a kind of schedule of the facts connected with the crime. I arranged them so far as possible in chronological order. I am not a punctual person, but I am a neat one, and I like things jotted down in a methodical fashion. Oh, Darth, it's amazing how language changes over time. One of my favorite examples is, forgive me for this one, the term hoe was used differently back in the day. Best example is in Romeo and Juliet, where Juliet's dad says, "What hoe?" My grade English teacher explained what the term meant then. It was like an exclamation or something. Now the term "what hoe" means something bad. That is true. That is true, Darth. That is absolutely true. You're right on the money there. At 9:30 punctually, there was a little tap on the window, and I rose and admitted Miss Marple. She had a very fine Shetland shawl thrown over her head and shoulders, and was looking rather old and frail. She came in full of little fluttering remarks. So good of you to let me come, and so good of dear Griselda. Raymond admires her so much. The perfect Grisoule, he always calls her. No, I won't have a footstool. Kintron, that is true, he ejected. Oh, Kintron. Kintron, you're gonna give me a heart attack someday. I swear it. I deposited the Shetland shawl on a chair and returned to take a chair facing my guest. We looked at each other, and a little deprecating smile broke out on her face. Darth, see, I'm not always here to torture you, Matsu. I speak words of wisdom sometimes. That is true, Darth. I will give you credit for that. You see, she began at last, living alone as I do, in a rather out-of-the-way part of the world, one has to have a hobby. That is, of course, woolwork and guides and welfare and sketching. But my hobby is, and always has been, human nature. So varied and so very fascinating. And of course, in a small village, with nothing to distract one, one has such ample opportunity for becoming what I might call proficient in one's study. One begins to class people, quite definitely, just as though they were birds or flowers, group so and so, genius this, species that. Sometimes, of course, one makes mistakes, but less and less as time goes on. And then, too, one tests oneself. Darth Kintron almost made me eject. Made me do that thing! My salmon with my last comment. Oh, the irony that follows my own comment about not always torturing you. Oh, my goodness gracious. I just can't say that word. And then, too, one tests oneself. One takes a little problem. For instance, the gill of picked shrimp that amused dear Griselda so much. a quite unimportant mystery, but absolutely incomprehensible unless one solves it right. And then there was that matter of the changed cough drops and the butcher's wife's umbrella. The last absolutely meaningless, unless on the assumption that the greengrocer was not behaving at all nicely with the chemist's wife, which of course turned out to be the case. It's so fascinating, you know, to apply one's judgment and find that one is right. You usually are, I believe, I said, smiling. That, I'm afraid, is what has made me a little conceited, confessed Miss Marple. But I've always wondered whether some day a really big mystery came. That if some day a really big mystery came along, I should be able to do the same thing. I mean, just solve it correctly. Logically, it ought to be exactly the same thing. After all, a tiny working model of a torpedo is just the same as a real torpedo. You mean it's all a question of relativity? I said slowly. It should be, logically, I admit, but I don't know whether it really is. Surely it must be the same, said Miss Marple. What one used to call the factors at school are the same. There's money, and the mutual attraction people of a opposite sex. And there's queerness, of course. So many people are a little queer, aren't they? In fact, most people are when you know them well. And normal people do such astonishing things sometimes, and abnormal people are sometimes so very sane and ordinary. In fact, it's the only way to compare people with other people you have known or come across. Sorry, I said that wrong. In fact, it's the only way is to compare people with other people you have known or come across. You'd be surprised if you knew how very few distinct types there are in all. You frighten me, I said. I feel I'm being put under the microscope. Of course, I wouldn't dream of saying any of this to Colonel Melchard. Such an autocratic man, isn't he? And poor Inspector Slack, well, he's exactly like the young lady in the boot shop who wants to sell you patent leather because she's got it in your size, and doesn't take any notice of the fact that you want brown calf. That really is a very good description of Slack. But you, Mr. Clement, know, I'm sure, quite as much about the crime as Inspector Slack. I thought, if we could work together... I wonder, I said. I think each one of us, in his secret heart, fancies himself as Sherlock Holmes. Then I told her of the 3 summons I had received that afternoon. I told her of Anne's discovery of the picture with the slashed face. I also told her of Miss Cram's attitude at the police station. And I described Haydock's identification of the crystal I had picked up. Having found that myself, I finished up. I should like it to be important, but it's probably got nothing to do with the case. Excuse me. A drink? Yeah, this is going to have to be the last one for the night. Darth, back to Romeo and Juliet. When Juliet's dad finds out about her dating Romeo, he calls her a wretch, which my teacher explained to us was Juliet's dad calling her, in my teacher's words, a dirty hole. Found that this bit interesting. That is true. At the time, that was the proper term for that sort of individual. There are so many words that have changed or have been dropped. Excuse me. I have been reading a lot of American detective. It's hard to do her voice sometimes. Excuse me, get a second. I have been reading a lot of American detective stories for the library lately, said Miss Marple, hoping to find them helpful. Was there anything in them about picric acid? I'm afraid not. I do remember reading a story once, though, in which a man was poisoned by picric acid, and lanolin being rubbed on him as an ointment. But as nobody has been poisoned here, that doesn't seem to enter into the question, I said. Then I took up my schedule and handed it to her. I've tried, I said, to recapitulate the facts of the case in as clearly as possible. All right, my dear scholars, here we have an entire list of all that was found by our dear, dear Clement. My schedule. Thursday, 21st inst. 12:30 p.m. Colonel Prothero alters his appointment from 6 to 6:15. Overheard by half village, very probably. 12:45. Pistol last seen in its proper place. But this is doubtful, as Mrs. Archer had previously said she could not remember. Darth. Oh, it was 67 degrees by me in New York City. I caught that one, Darth. I caught that one. I caught that one ahead of time. You can't fool me, Darth. You can't fool me. 12:45. Pistol last seen in its proper place. But this is doubtful, as Mrs. Archer had previously said she could not remember. 5:30, approximately. Colonel and Mrs. Prothero leave Old Hall for village in car. 5:30. Fake call put through to me from the North Lodge, Old Hall. 6:15, for a minute or two earlier. Colonel Prothero arrives at Vicarage. Is shown into study by Mary. 6:20. Mrs. Prothero comes along back lane and across garden to study window. Colonel Prothero not visible. Darth, Matsu, you said read the beginning out loud. We all heard it. I count that as a win for me. Alright, okay. I'll be fair, Darth. That can count as a win for you. 6:20. Mrs. Prothero comes along back lane and across garden to study window. Colonel Prothero not visible. I have to reach for another water. I think this is the third water I've gone through. Oh. 6:29. Call from Lawrence Redding's cottage put through to Mrs. Price Ridley, according to exchange. 6:30 to 6:35. Shot heard. Accepting telephone call time is correct. Kinshon, I had someone ask me how to say 7 in Spanish. I says that I cannot. Sorry, I'm bad at pronouncing Spanish. I says sled. It's I can't pronounce. Sorry, Kinshon. I'm really right now. My tongue is very much tied, so I'm terrible at pronouncing Spanish words. It's just me. It's just me. And I'm sorry for any Spanish speakers out there if I butchered that word. I am so sorry. It's just me and my inability to speak certain languages. Shot heard, accepting telephone call time is correct. Lawrence Redding, Anne Prothero, and Dr. Stone's evidence seem to point to its being earlier, but Mrs. PR probably right. 6:45. Lawrence Redding arrives Vicarage and finds the body. 6:48. I meet Lawrence Redding. 6:49. Body discovered by me. 6:55. Haydock examines body. Note: the only two people who have no kind of alibi for 6:30 to 6:35 are Miss Cram and Mrs. Lestrange. Miss Cram says she was at the borough, but no confirmation. It seems reasonable, however, to dismiss her from case, as there seems nothing to connect her with it. Mrs. Lestrange left Dr. Haydock's house some time after 6 to keep an appointment. Where was the appointment, and with whom? It could hardly have been with Colonel Prothero, as he expected to be engaged with me. It is true that Mrs. Lestrange was near the spot at the time the crime was committed, but it seems doubtful what motive she could have had for murdering him. She did not gain by his death, and the inspector's theory of blackmail I cannot accept. Mrs. Lestrange is not that kind of woman. Also, it seems unlikely that she should have got hold of Lawrence Redding's pistol. So there are the evidence, my dear scholars. Hope you remember it all.
Very clear,
said Miss Marple, nodding her head in approval.
very clear indeed. Gentlemen always make such excellent memoranda.
You agree with what I have written? I asked.
Oh, yes, you have put it all beautifully.
I asked her the question then that I had been meaning to put all along. Miss Marple, I said, who do you suspect? You once said that there were 7 people.
Quite that I should think,
said Miss Marple absently.
I expect every one of us suspects someone different. In fact, one can see they do.
She didn't ask me who I suspected.
The point is,
She said,
that one must provide an explanation for everything. Each thing has got to be explained away satisfactorily. If you have a theory that fits every fact, well, it must be the right one. But that's extremely difficult. If it wasn't for that note...
The notes? I said, surprised.
Yes, you remember. I told you. That note has worried me all along. It's wrong somehow.
Surely, I said, that is explained now. It was written at 6:35. On the other hand, the murderers put the misleading 6:20 at the top. I think that is clearly established.
But even then,
said Miss Marple,
it's all wrong.
But why?
Listen.
Miss Marple leaned forward eagerly.
Mrs. Prothero passed my garden, as I told you, and she went as far as the study window, and she looked in, and she didn't see Colonel Prothero.
Because he was writing at the desk, I said.
And that's what's all wrong. That was at 6:20. We agreed that he wouldn't sit down to say he couldn't wait any longer until after 6:30. So why was he sitting at the writing table then?
I never thought of that, I said slowly.
Let us, dear Mr. Clement, just go over it again. Mrs. Prothero comes to the window and she thinks the room is empty. She must have thought so, because otherwise she would never have gone down to the studio to meet Mr. Redding. It wouldn't have been safe. The room must have been absolutely silent if she thought it was empty. That leaves us 3 alternatives, doesn't it?
Darth, while on the topic of numbers, those numbers, I'm not going to fall for it, is funny for 2 reasons. What is the reason, Darth? What is the reason? You mean?
Well, the first alternative would be that Colonel Prothero was dead already. But I don't think that's the most likely one. To begin with, he'd only been there about 5 minutes, and she or I would have heard the shot. And secondly, the same difficulty remains about his being at the writing table. The second alternative is, of course, that he was sitting at the writing table writing a note, but in that case it must have been a different note altogether. It can't have been to say he couldn't wait. And the third...
Yes, I said. Darth, 1, because sex sounds like a certain English word, and 2, 6, 7 is... Yeah, you slipped that one in on me. Yes. Mm. At some point, maybe I should program just a counter to count how many times this shows up. Oh my goodness gracious. Darth.
And the third?
Yes, I said.
Well, the third is, of course, that Mrs. Prothero was right, and that the room was actually empty.
You mean that after he had been shown in, he went out again and came back later?
Yes.
But why should he have done that? Miss Marple spread out her hands in a little gesture of bewilderment. That would mean looking at the case from an entirely different angle, I said.
One so often has to do that about everything, don't you think?
I did not reply. I was going over carefully in my mind the three alternatives that Miss Marple had suggested. With a slight sigh, the old lady rose to her feet.
I must be getting back. I am very glad to have had this little chat, though we haven't got very far, have we?
To tell you the truth, I said as I fetched her shawl, the whole thing seems to me a bewildering maze.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I think on the whole one theory fits neatly nearly everything. That is, if you admit one coincidence, and I think one coincidence is allowable. More than one, of course, is unlikely.
Do you really think that? About the theory, I mean? I asked, looking at her.
I admit there is one flaw in my theory, one fact that I can't get over. Oh, if only that note had been something quite different.
She sighed and shook her head. She moved toward the window and absent-mindedly reached up her hand and felt the rather depressed-looking plant that stood in a stand.
You know, dear Mr. Clement, this should be watered oftener. Poor thing, it needs it badly. Your maid should water it every day. I suppose it is she who attends to it.
As much, I said, as she attends to anything,
A little raw at present.
suggested Miss Marple. Yes, I said, and Griselda steadily refuses to attempt to sack her. Her idea is that only a thoroughly undesirable maid will remain with us. However, Mary herself gave us notice the other day.
Indeed, I always imagined she was very fond of you both.
I haven't noticed it, I said, but as a matter of fact, it was Lettice Prothero who upset her. Mary came back from the inquest in rather a temperamental state and found Lettice here, and, well, they had words.
Oh!
Said Miss Marple. She was just about to step through the window when she stopped suddenly, and a bewildering series of changes passed over her face. Darth, oh, in case you're wondering, I am actually learning how to say those numbers in different languages just to have fun. Oh, joy, just what I'm looking forward to.
Oh dear,
She muttered to herself.
I have been stupid. So that was it. Perfectly possible all the time.
I beg your pardon? She turned a worried face upon me.
Nothing. An idea that has just occurred to me. I must go home and think things out thoroughly. Do you know, I believe I have been extremely stupid. Almost critically so.
I find that hard to believe, I said gallantly. I escorted her through the window and across the lawn. Can you tell me what it is that has occurred to you so suddenly? I asked.
I'd rather not. Just at present. You see, there is still a possibility that I may be mistaken. But I do not think so. Here we are at my garden gate. Thank you so much. Please do not come any further, Father.
Is the note still a stumbling block? I asked, as she passed through the gate and latched it behind her. She looked at me abstractedly.
The note. Oh! Of course, that wasn't the real note. I never thought it was. Good night, Mr. Clement.
Wait, it wasn't the real note? What is that supposed to mean? She went rapidly up the path to the house, leaving me staring after her. I didn't know what to think. So we are going to stop there, my dear scholars. Darth, I know it in German, Russian, Spanish, and Hebrew. Oh my goodness gracious! I'm just gonna. I am gonna have to be on my guard, aren't I, Darth? Oh my goodness gracious! All right. So that's so. There's been some extra clues now. And what is that about the note? So the note wasn't a real note. What is that supposed to mean? And Miss Marple has some information that might solve the entire case, but she isn't sure. So there aren't actually that many chapters left, my dear scholars, to this book. I'll say that. We are very close to the end. Oh my goodness gracious. Um, yes. Oh my goodness gracious. All right then. So next week we are going. Monday we'll be playing more of Horizon Zero Dawn. I think we'll be doing an extra long stream for it. Just because knowing the game now, we might want to do a little bit longer. Kintron, I tried to get him to say it in Spanish, and of course, I can't speak Spanish, so of course I couldn't do it. I'm sorry, Kintron, I ruined that. And then Thursday, if everything goes according to plan, we will be reading more of the murder at the Vicarage. So before we go, let's see who we can raid tonight. Raid, raid, raid. Is there anyone online? If I can get my connection to show up. Oh my goodness, it's very slow right now. Oh, why is everything so slow all of a sudden? Oh boy. Um, oh dear. Give me 1 second, my dear scholars. Maybe I could check elsewhere? Um, oh dear me. Well, I don't know who to raid, so, we might just close out the evening as is. So then, my dear scholars, oh my goodness gracious, I say unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Till we meet each other again at the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Till then, farewell and bye bye.